You know that Casa Bruce is always an area of great concern to the Labour Party. And seeing now that Octavia Alfred has almost maintained the amount of votes she got in the last election and securing 85.09% of the votes cast, that was quite remarkable.
Yeah, and also in the angle of the independent candidate, I think it was mentioned tonight as well by the Prime Minister that the independent candidates themselves, despite their, their backgrounds or whatnot, they did, however, have an impact, especially in the level of political consciousness in our society. I think this year's election showed a different demographic of the conscious level of the society that we live in, whereby persons are now feeling more confident to be independent in themselves to stand. So yes, Octavia Alfred did in fact stand her ground as was expected, and the independent candidate showed face in that battle.
Okay, so that is Cassie Bruce, Octavia Alfred getting some 85.09% compared to the last election that she got 51.03% of the votes.
But before we leave Octavia Alfred, when I looked at the last numbers for the United Workers' Party in the last election of 2019, where Ernie John Finn polled 808 votes to Octavia Alfred's 842%. She shared Octavia Alfred 51.03% of the votes cast, and Ernie John Finn got 48.97%. One would have expected that that the independent candidate there would probably have gotten some of the votes that Ernie got in the last election, but
right.
Apparently that didn't materialize, and I suspect it because of the activity that transpired there after the trough system and the fact that the Prime Minister is indicating that he intends to move a certain portion of the constituency to a new location because of the situation as it relates to climate change. So that could have caused a great impact in terms of persons not going out to vote for the independent candidate, but rather remaining with the Octavia Alfred.
We can also see that Cassie Bruce North, where we are going to break it down by the various polling stations in the constituency. Cassie Bruce North, the Cassie Bruce Primary School, surnames A to J. We saw that Octavia Alfred got 105 votes, and Kelvin Cadet, the independent candidate, got 24, and 5 rejected ballots, and there were no spoiled votes, a total of 129. So if you want me to repeat that, listeners, Octavia Alfred and as I said earlier on at the preliminary counts, in the Cassie Bruce North, Cassie Bruce Primary School, surnames A to J, the report says that Octavia Alfred for the Dominican Labour Party received 105 votes in that area, and Kelvin Cadet, independent candidate, 24, and rejected ballot 5, spoiled votes none.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So you could see that in that area, Octavia Alfred carried the day, and that was quite remarkable, getting 105 votes to the Kelvin Cadet, the coconut man, getting 24 votes, and rejected ballots 5, spoiled ballots none, and ballots counted 129. That was quite remarkable.
And we can say when we look at the last election in that same polling station, Octavia Alfred received 110. So just 5 votes less than that of the last election.
Right.
And Ernie John Finn received 99 votes. Rejected ballots was 5 and 1 spoiled ballot.
Well, that means that Octavia Alfred was able to maintain on a consistent basis the number of votes she got. Last election, she got 110 votes, and this election, she got 105 votes. So you can see there was no significant difference in terms of the nominal data there.
Right.
And we continue to continue getting Cassie Bruce. This time is in Cassie Bruce North again, but again at the Cassie Bruce Primary School, but this time surnames K to Z. Octavia Alfred of the Dominican Labour Party received 69 votes, and Kelvin Cadet received 24 votes. Rejected ballots 4, spoiled ballots 0, a total of 92 votes were actually cast in that polling station. And when we looked at the last election, Octavia Alfred received some 78 votes in the last election. Again, you can sense that she's consistent, where she got 69 in the last election. And Ernie John Finn received 66 votes in that last election in Cassibrus. Rejected ballots was 7, and spoiled ballots was 0. A total of 144 ballots were counted.
Right, that shows the level of consistency, and are we looking at political trends in that particular area that you can see Octavia Alfred is maintaining a level of consistency, my good friend Mr. Robinson?
Yes, I would think that the consistency was followed by the support of the labor rights in that area, whereas you can also, this is my presumption, that the followers of the United Workers' Party, I would presume, decided to follow their former PAL rep of that particular area in deciding to not contest. However, the independent candidates, as well as those who chose to support or exercise their right to vote for such an independent candidate, also exercise their right to be independent thinkers and voters as well. So but that may be a contributing factor, that maybe the supporters of one particular party decided, well, if my former PAL rep is not participating, then I too would not participate. And those who shared the similar mindset or consciousness of the independent candidate decided to at least try to cast an independent vote.
But you can see that there's a great level of consistency in terms of the Labour votes.
Of course.
The Labour mantra was go out to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Take it very seriously, and they heeded the warning of their leader and they went out to vote.
But we see also, we have seen that the independent candidate got some 23 votes. So we can almost say, because we said that Octavia Alfred is consistent, she got some 69 votes. So we can almost say that the 23 votes that the independent candidate would have received would have been from that of the previous candidate of the 2019 election.
That's correct,
Right.
Cecil. That's very important, because you see, trends are very important, and statistics tell us that all this halabubu about the last election, where they were saying that voters came in from the outside in the Cassibrus, diaspora came and influenced the trends in Cassibrus. We are now seeing that this argument is totally debunked, that the voters who are in the constituency are remaining true to the Labour Party, and they are maintaining the votes.
Right.
And that is very relevant to what you have just said, because we have heard in the past that people saying that, especially the opposition, that people are coming out from other parts of the world, international communities, to come in and to vote. And tonight, so far, we are seeing the consistency of the Cassibrus constituency in terms of the voters that are actually placing their confidence in the Dominican Labour Party. Let us now look at Cassibrus South. Again, the Cassibrus Primary School, A to C. So Cassibrus South, we just look at Cassibrus North, now Cassibrus South. At the Cassibrus Primary School, A to C. Octavia Alfred, 62 votes. Kelvin Cadet, 14 votes. Rejected ballots, 4. Spoiled ballots, 0. A total count of 76. We can see that of the last election, 2019, again consistency. Octavia Alfred of the Dominican Labour Party received some 70 votes, and Ernie John Finn of the UWP received 59 votes, one rejected ballot, and no spoiled, a total of 129 votes.
Right. So again, we are seeing the trend continuing, that the votes for the Labour Party are not declining at all, very marginal. So you can see the Labour Party support is being maintained, and that is important. And as we said in our earlier discussion some weeks back, Cecil, is that once the Labour Party lays its hand on a constituency, they maintain it. They do not lose that trend. And so you can see Octavia Alfred for the Dominican Labour Party is remaining consistent with the trend of the Labour Party.
Yes, and you can say that last election she received 70 votes, and this time around she received some 62 votes. Again, the consistency that we have been speaking about, and that is so clear in witnessing the consistency of the Dominican Labour Party. Mr. Adams.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a very important argument I heard the Prime Minister bringing forward. That the premise that people have that he's paying for voters to come in to influence or shift the paradigm, that is not true at all. The voters are voting because they love their party. They love their PM and they love the Labour Party.
Yes. Hassan?
Yes, sir. Of course, the numbers don't lie. The statistics reveal what we can clearly see. The things that I feel also play a heavy importance is what is not on the screen, is the level of political awareness that we have all grown accustomed to witnessing in this particular election cycle. Many persons may have the argument that the snap election caught a number of persons by surprise, and that the supporters of the Labour Party, regardless of the timing or regardless of the zeitgeist in which we are in, decided that they trust the confidence of the Labour Party. And those who felt strongly that, hey, listen, we're going to try to at least show that there is a fighting chance, or that there is some level of democracy left in the country, that we will participate. And you saw that the Prime Minister gave a number of the independent candidates the opportunity to voice their views on certain things. And yes, Octavia Alfred and majority of the Labour Party victors maintained their hold and stance in their constituencies, because their vision, their call never really changed. And as their mantra stated, that they are still the party to vote for, they are still the best choice, and they made sure that those words or those mantras were echoed. And the statistics don't lie. The people felt that this is what was the best choice. Others may have not felt that way, but chose to, participate in a different manner.
But Robbo, you see, Mr. Robinson,
yes, sir.
Statistics is a very stubborn thing. Even if you perceive that's not the case, but the figures actually tell you these are the realities. The figures tell you directly in your face.
Of course.
And we can now look at Castle South, Castle Primary School, this time D to J, surnames D to J. Octavia Alfred, 81 votes. 81 votes. The independent candidate received 6 votes, rejected ballots 5, spoiled ballot 0, and the ballot counted is 87. Okay, 87 in the election of 2019. We've seen again the consistency. Octavia Alfred receiving 94 votes. Ernie John Finn of the UWP in the year 2019 received 47 votes. Rejected ballots 4, spoiled ballots 2. Total ballot counted was 144. Yes.
Again, we are seeing that the trend is continuing. In statistic, we are on a consistent level. We are seeing that, Octavia Alfred is maintaining that number, that hold on that particular area. So there's not any great shift. The key word there is consistency. Consistency in terms of what I'm expecting in that area, people to come out to vote for me, and they're keeping true to the cause.
And not only that, in the Casibus constituency, it is showing that there is a powerful voter turnout for the Dominican Labour Party. The Labour Party maintained its consistency in the last election, as we made mention that Octavia Alfred got 94 votes, and this time around she got 81. Again, it is consistent.
Yeah, but one important thing that was happening before the election, whilst we're here in the studio on that Sunday when the Prime Minister announced the election, persons in the area and news reporters from the opposition side will say, hey, look, a trough system just affected Castle Bruce. And look, the Prime Minister calling election. He is not caring for the people. But when you look at the figures, the people know their Prime Minister, they know their leader. He came out to see them, and they remain true to the cause.
That's a very good point that you have just made, Mr. Adams. Also, too, when we look at Cassibrus North, is that Cassibrus North? Cassibrus Primary School. I think we had this earlier on. A to Z. We had this earlier. A to Z. That's Cassibrus North. I think we were on the South earlier on. So we need to look at South. Cassibrus South. All right. So Cassibrus South. K to Z. Octavia Alfred receiving 64 votes. And Kelvin Cadet receiving 11 votes. 5 rejected ballots. Spoiled ballots 0. Ballots counted 75. Yes.
Yeah, of course. As the theme of tonight seems to persist, which is consistency, not only in elections but in life in general, consistency at one particular goal will always reveal the necessary outcome in which you want to obtain.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Prime Minister stated tonight, that you enter into a battle to win, and you accept certain areas where you may find improvements, and gave a lot of kudos to those who chose to come up against such a powerful machine. And one of the reasons why they continue to win is because the level of consistency and the level of the approach to politics that they take. Of course, you can't change politics, the nature of politics. You just have to change your approach to it, your consciousness, or your views on why certain things happen. The best way to fail is to not try. So, and as you can see, there's a consistency in their effort to maintain their hold in their necessary constituencies. So the DLP, like my brother here stated, that the numbers don't lie, and consistency definitely proves to.
Well, I want to add a new word to consistency: organization. The party machinery is working. It's a well-oiled machine, and they take nothing for granted. So they're maintaining their consistency.
Right. This time, Cassibrus last election, Cassibrus South, the Cassibrus Primary School, K to Z. Octavia Alfred received 63 votes. This election she received 64. Again, we are talking about consistency, and it's very important to make note that when we're talking about voter turnout in the Cassibrus constituency, the people of the Cassibrus constituency for the Dominican Labour Party have gone out thus far. What we are seeing is that the consistency for the Cassibrus constituency is there. And I think you were saying earlier on, Adams, that the talk of bringing in voters, you are seeing tonight a true reflection of what, again, the voters were saying in that of the last election.
Well, you can see, Cecil, that people are not really concerned about electoral reform. People are concerned of the bread and butter issues. A lot of people come with electoral reform. That's just rhetoric. Because as Alex Bruno said tonight, people are more focused on the bread and butter issue. What can the party do to improve my quality of life? This electoral reform business is just a divergence, and the figures are clearly demonstrating right in our faces that the people are not buying this. They are remaining consistent with the figures that we're witnessing. So statistics doesn't lie.
Hassan?
Yeah. The electoral reform discussion and the issues or the contentions or the details behind it is one that there's nothing that I can say that has not already been said. And as we can clearly see here, yes, there is a necessity for certain aspects of the electoral process to be adjusted, and as the word used tonight, be more modernized. It is a common sense thing, I believe. You need an ID to do particulars. But in the event that you do not have the ID to do the particular, but you have the opportunity to do the particular, I believe you should at least take a chance, despite the obstacles or the circumstances by one may find his or herself, in this case, voting. So yeah, electoral reform is to some a bread and butter issue, and to others, other things may be a bread and butter issue, but that is to one's perception and orientation on the matter. But the fact of the matter is electoral reform, as well as other bread and butter issues, and the consistency of what we have been witnessing in our political system in Dominica is one that needs modernization.
Okay, we now go to another polling station. That is Tranto Dipa. And they went and vote in the Fair Trade Building, surnames A to Z, which means it says clearly that there's only one polling station in the Tranto Dipa area. They voted in the Fair Trade Building, and the surnames A to Z. We saw Octavia Alfred receiving 28 votes in that polling station, and Kelvin Cadet received some 10 votes, rejected ballots 0, spoiled ballot 0, a total of 38 votes. So let us look at what last election was. Last election, we saw Octavia Alfred receiving 17 votes and Ernie John Finn getting some 68 votes. And you can see the reflection in that area, the Toronto area, that the independent candidate received some 10 votes, and Ernie received some 28 votes. So Ernie received some 28 votes in this election. Last election she received 17, an increased number of votes for Ernie. Again, we can speak of the consistency.
But Octavia Alfred increased the number of votes in that area. She moved on from, I think, 17 to 28 votes. So there was an increase for her in that particular polling station.
Right.
And the ULP votes, people didn't go out to vote because we can see a reflection in the Coconut Man, Kelvin Cadet, only receiving 10.
Yeah. Right. Yes, so we can go to the other polling station in the Castle-Bruce area. And thus far, as we said, we are seeing the consistency of the voters in the Castle-Bruce area. So this time we will try to get Good Hope. They voted at the Good Hope Resource Center, surnames A to J. I think, yes, the surnames A to J in the Good Hope area. That's on the polling station, A to J. And they voted at the Good Hope Resource Center. Octavia Alfred received 80 votes, and Kelvin Cadet received 16 free rejected ballots, no spoiled ballots. So I repeat that, Octavia Alfred received 80 votes, and Kelvin Cadet received 16 votes, rejected ballots free, spoiled ballots 0. And if we look at the last election, Octavia Alfred received some 68 votes, and Ernie Alfred received 110 votes in that area. So
that's an increase.
This is Ernie's. That's the last election.
Okay.
Ernie receiving 110 votes, and then we saw that Octavia Alfred receiving in that same polling station A to J some 68 votes. So she had an increase.
She had an increase of 12 votes, actually. Mm-hmm. So in the last election in 2019, she had 68 votes. And in this election in 2022, she received 80 votes.
Yeah.
So she has shown an increase of 12 votes. And that again shows a high level of consistency.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we can now go to another part of the constituency, in the Good Hope area again. This time, we are seeing that Octavia Alfred received 67 votes, and Cadet received some 17 votes, and 6 rejected ballots. And let's see what it was like in the previous elections as to what we would have seen in terms of Octavia Alfred and Ernie John Finn. So Ernie John Finn would have received 149 votes, and Octavia Alfred would have received 55 votes in that election of 2019. And again, too, we are seeing the consistency of the Labour Party votes in the Good Hope area in these elections.
Right. In 2019, she received 55 votes. And in 2022, Octavia Alfred is receiving 67 votes. She again showed an increase of 12 votes in this election.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's go to another area in Good Hope, because this one is K to Z. We're going to see where we can now go. Another part of Petite-Soufrière, people were able to vote at the Petite-Soufrière primary school, surnames A to J. Octavia Alfred received 107 votes in that area, in that part of the constituency, 107 votes, and Kelvin Cadet, as the independent candidate, received 6 votes. And we would see exactly what happened in the previous election. Octavia Alfred received 46 votes, and Ernie John Finn received 52. So Octavia Alfred in the last election received 146 votes, and Ernie Alfred received 52. That is in the year 2019.
Right. In 2019, she received 146 votes, and in this election, she received 107 votes. So she lost votes in that area, but still, her trend continues. She's remaining at a level of consistency. The bell curve is remaining consistency. It's not shifting.
Yes. So some 49 votes less than the previous election, but you can see the consistency of the votes in that constituency, or in that area of the constituency for Octavia Alfred.
Yes, the Dominican Labour Party, of course, I'm not sure if saying these words would be the right thing, but it was almost like it was preordained. There was an atmosphere. I would say that a lot of persons either subconsciously knew what the outcome was. And you can approach life, not trying to sound philosophical, but if you look at life in a negative manner and expecting a negative outcome, then therefore your reality would then persist to manifest to that. And the present consistent mentality of the DLP administration, from what I have witnessed and noticed, is that they have an optimistic view on the outcomes despite the socio-political climate or the orientations of many, whether for or against. And once you have a mentality of despite the circumstance or the odds, I will become victorious, then therefore when it is somewhat preordained. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm too heavily leaning on the independent side, but it does go to show that knowing the circumstances, knowing the monster in which that they're going up against, it takes a lot of independent confidence in oneself to say, hey, I'm going to at least make an impact. And indeed, they may not, on the numbers side, make a significant impact in terms of the amount of voters, but they did make an impact in the sense of the democratic process by which an election is. So therefore, everyone who participated, of course, in my orientation, they helped in the democratic process. And slowly but surely, the DLP administration have shown that with consistent effort and persistency of mind and having a particular orientation on the outcome that you want to have, you will obtain that victory, of course.
Very interesting that you put it that way, because you see, the thing about it, you must remember in terms of time is a very important element. A political party in time tend to decrease every election cycle. But we are seeing a new phenomenon here in the Caribbean politics.
Right.
That a ruling party on its sixth term has been able to increase its mandate from 18 seats, which it had in 2019, to 19 seats now. This is political history for the entire Caribbean. So the leadership of Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit is clearly demonstrating that leadership matters. Because I do not believe that any other leader will see in the future being able to equal that record. You mean you're going out, you're saying now that in the next 2 years, you intend 2.5 years to bow out of politics, and you're still able to command that mandate, where persons are giving you an increased mandate. From 18 seats, you are able to move on to 90. This is phenomenal.
Of course, as with anything in life, as long as you maintain a particular energy towards one thing that you want to attain, to put it simply, in order to make things a reality, if the universe is mental, if some may believe that, if the universe is mental, then what you need to manifest what it is that you want in life is a particular level of discipline, energy, effort, consistency is what we've been seeing. And we all know that the Prime Minister has had a vision of what he wants Dominica to be, where he sees himself, and his vision is one that has had consistent effort, energy, and discipline from a collective team. Whereas there are others who have a different orientation as to what they want the country to be, and they have a different level of energy, level of effort, level of discipline and drive and work ethic to make that manifest. And despite one's view, I'm trying to be very neutral here, despite one's view, whether for good or wrong, right, that type of mentality, it will take a level of discipline, effort, and energy to see the change that you want to see change. In the Labour Party's instance, it takes a different level of energy to maintain what it is that you want to maintain.
Well, the key word there is, Mr. Robinson, is dynamic.
Okay.
The main theme here is that the Prime Minister told us in 2019 when he brought out his manifesto and his vision for Dominica, he wants a dynamic Dominica. Now, the word dynamic comes from the word dynamite, meaning energy, explosion, where he wants to focus in a new drive in terms of getting people to understand the mission. Let us create something new, a new awareness, a new philosophy, a new mission. And he set it out clearly as to what he would like to attain at a particular period. Now, listening to him now, he's talking about a long-term plan. He's talking about a 15-year plan. Normally in administration and management, we talk about short-term planning and long-term planning. A short-term plan would be probably 5 years and a long-term plan 10 years. But now he's extending that 10-year to 15-year plan. Within 2.5 years, which he's telling the Dominican public he intends to remain, he's now showing a focus for 15 years. So he's going to set the stage. He's going to leave some elements there, whoever takes over in the next 2.5 years, to follow. Let us plan. Let us organize. Let everybody understand what the mission is and what the philosophy is, so that we do not lose focus. Let's stay focused. Let's create a dynamic Dominic.
Of course.
We can go now to the other part of the constituency of Cassibrus in the Petit Soufriere area, the Petit Soufriere school, syllabus A to Z. Octavia Alfred received some 82 votes, and Kelvin Cadet received 9 votes.
Yeah, we can't necessarily see the same screen that you're on right now due to there's a slight technical scenario that we're dealing with right now. But
yeah, we know it's not back.
Okay, it's back on.
It's coming back on.
It's coming back on.
So you, from your screen, you can talk, and we will just follow you.
We can say that Octavia Alfred, as I said, received 82 votes in this election. Cadet received some 9 votes in this election, 2022 and 28. And then 2019, we would have seen Octavia Alfred receive 104 votes and Ernie Alfred receiving 70.
Right. So she received 82 votes in this election, and she received 104 votes in the last election. So there has been a slight decline. But again, when I'm looking at the mathematical trends, the numbers are remaining consistent.
Consistent, yes. That's important.
That's the theme for tonight.
That's the important thing to note.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to go into the next area. And as I said earlier on, it's disciplinary results. And let's hope that those of you who love numbers will understand what we are actually doing here tonight, because we heard that the Dominican Labour Party have received 19 seats. Some persons are very interested, wanting to know what the 19 seats are. So in the Sansove area, at the Sansove Primary School, A to Z, the Labour Party, Octavia Alfred, received 47 votes, and Kelvin Cadet received one rejected ballot, and no spoiled ballots. So 47 for Octavia Alfred in this election. And again, we are seeing that in the last election, that Octavia Alfred again received 47 votes. The last election. So that is very constant. And John Finn received some 41 votes, with 1 spoiled ballot and 1 rejected ballot in that area of Sansove.
Well, in that polling station, she has remained consistent. In 2019, she got 47 votes, and in 2022, she still gets 47 votes. So, as we said before, the key word is she's keeping consistent. The trends are there.
And that's very important to note, as we said earlier on, for people who are actually following the trend of the results and hearing of the talks of what happened in the past. We are bearing witness that the numbers are actually not lying. The numbers are keeping consistent. And that we just looked at the Cassibrus constituency. It was read in 2019. It's also read this time around. Now we are looking at Mont Jean River Sirica in Mont John River Civic, let's go back to the first slide that you just showed us. We saw that Gertrude Roberts received 52, Greta Roberts, sorry, received 52.63% of the votes, that is of the Labour Party, and Pharaoh Coffey received 47.37% of the votes. And in this election, Greta Roberts and the independent candidate, it was Courtney Matthew. Greta Roberts for the Dominican Labour Party received some 571 votes, which is compared to the last election, where she received 601. And that is a telling story, to 601 to 571. That is to say, again, consistency in the polls overall, and the overall margin is even greater. She has received some 76.64% of the votes in that area of her constituency.
Well, she has shown an increase in terms of statistically, in terms of percentages. In 2019, she received 52.6%, and she has increased in terms of percentages to 76.4%. And that shows a great increase in terms of her consistency. And we're seeing that once the Labour Party, as we said earlier on, Cecil, that once the Labour Party holds to a constituency, it does not release it. In fact, it tries to improve its hold on it every election cycle.
Right, and just to balance off the scaling numbers, we noticed that in the last election we had 47% for the opposition, and this cycle we see Courtney receiving 23, receiving pretty much half of what the opposition had in that area, showing that indeed right now we are in a different conscious political catalyst whereby, we are now becoming more politically conscious, not just as Dominicans, but as a global society, as a regional society. Barbados themselves have now grown accustomed to having such results because the people are more aware as to what it is that they want. And for those who may now be hearing my voice for the first time or understanding, trying to get a better understanding of who I am, anyone who knows me know that I'm a consciousness and spirituality advocate, whereby I believe that the Creator is the main thing. I encourage everyone to be independent in their mindset. We can all follow a particular political party, a religious party or whatever. Our independent mindsets is what allows us to make particular decisions. And the consistent mindset of those of the DLP Labour Party is one you can see that have a shared mindset, whereas the increasing number of persons who have an independent mindset. In the case of Mr. Matthew himself, he is one I'm sure may not have had a strong political background, but he feels that he can make a change. And the democracy that I've witnessed in this election is one that is very telling, and that persons are now, confident to step and say, hey, I can, if not make a change, but at least make a difference in whatever aspect. And the DLP maintains that, hey, if you want to make a change, you also have to follow a particular level of consistency, discipline, in order to make your reality real, as we have a strong following of persons who share that particular mindset as well.
And so in Grand 4, the Grand 4 Primary School, surnames A to F, we saw in these elections, polling results, Greta Roberts, the Dominican Labour Party, received 104 votes, and Courtney Matthew received 9 votes. And the last election, Greta Roberts received 111, and Pharaoh Coffey received 62. Again, showing consistency of the votes, 104 compared to that of 111 in the last election. Grand 4 Primary School and Grand 4.
Again, the key word there is consistency. Yeah. 104 this time around, and last time, 2019, 111. So she's consistent.
Yes, and we are going again in the Grand 4 constituency, or in the Grand 4 area, Grand 4. You saw tonight, the elections tonight, Grand 4, again at the Grand 4 Primary School, surnames G2N. Greta Roberts received 143 votes in Grand 4, and Courtney Matthew 13. And you may see the last election, Again, consistency. Greta received in the same area 144, just one vote less, and Fury received 71. And so you can see, again, as we have been speaking all night tonight, the consistency of the voters of the Dominican Labour Party.
Yeah. No shift at all as far as I'm concerned.
No
143
Yes.
this year, 144 in 2019. Again, a high level of consistency.
No, in Grand Fork, Primary School, surnames O to Z. Greta Roberts, again, she received 173 votes. 173 votes, with Courtney Matthew receiving 21. 11 rejected ballots, no spoil ballots. And in last election, she received 178. Again, consistency. 178. Pharaoh received 115, and this time around the Pharaoh received 115. And this time around, we are seeing that the independent candidate received 21. So Greta Roberts, again, consistency.
173 this year, 178 in 2019. The figures are consistent.
Figures are very consistent. In the Montjean area, one polling station, A to Z, Greta Roberts received some 50 votes in the Montjean area. They voted at the Montjean Primary School, A to Z, and Greta received 50, and Courtney Matthew received 19, 5 rejected ballots. In the last election, in the Montjean area, again consistency, she received 49. So this election, she received one more vote than that of the previous, and Ferry Coffee received 83 with 2 rejected ballots.
High level of consistency again, Curtis. Cecil, 50 votes this year in 2022, 49 votes in 2019. Very consistent.
That is very telling in terms of, as we have been talking about consistency. Again, too, in the Rivier Civic area, Tet Yam Community Hall, that's where they voted. A to K, Greta Roberts for the Dominican Labour Party received 46 votes. 46 votes in the Rivier Civic area. And Courtney Matthew received 47, so that's one polling station in the preliminary count. We have seen that the independent candidate has won that polling station. And last elections, we would have seen that Greta Roberts again received 54 votes, and Ferry Coffee received 101.
So she is maintaining her consistency. The Labourites are remaining true to her. 46 this year, and in 2019, 54.
So
definitely.
That is good consistency. And again, we go into the River Civic area again in the Tet Yam Community Hall. Surname L to Z. Greta Roberts receiving some 55 votes in that area, in the River Civic area, and Courtney Matthew again winning the in the preliminary counts, winning that polling station with a total of 65.
Indeed.
And Pharaoh Coffee in the last election received 109, and Greta Roberts received 65. Again, we are seeing the figures of Greta Roberts is not changing.
Yeah, and we also seeing the impact that the polling stations have, the voting areas have, whereby the level of consistency and the overall victory depended on the level of voters that continued to support their present PAL rep, whereas the independent candidate had a fair chance in 2 out of the many over there. But however, it did show that with a level of ethic, you can make an impact.
Well, here again, in 2022, she received 55 votes in that polling station.
Right.
And in 2019, she received 65. So the labor rights, that's the thing we must pay attention to. The labor rights are not losing faith in their party. Mm-hmm. They're saying, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to vote. But when crunch time comes, they're coming out to vote.
Indeed.
That's the important message. They are not leaving their political organization.
Right.
They cannot trust the other side.
They have that shared vision. They have that unified vision. And I think that is what is important, having a shared vision, a unified vision as to what it is that you want to attain, what you feel is best for you or those that you care about, and maintaining that level of consistency towards that attainment.
We can go to the Lapland constituency. Kent Edwards ran the last election in 2019 for the Dominican Labour Party, where he received some 742 votes, attaining some 52.74% of the votes cast. And Francisca Joseph of the United Workers' Party received some 665 votes, which is 47.26% of the votes. And this election, we have Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party receiving 690. What did I say? Did she get in last election? Well, how much did Ken receive? Ken received 742 votes. Again, in the Lapland constituency, you can see the consistency of the figures. Some 690 votes. She received some 94.65% of the votes, and Jason Fountain received some 5.35% of the votes. And
that's a landslide right there.
Jason went for Team Unity, received some 49 votes for the entire election process.
Yeah, but you must remember that in that constituency, you have an individual by the name of Jason Fountain, and persons know his reputation, and the people are not going to surrender a doctor, a very positive speaker, a master of the English language, for that gentleman with a shady character.
Right.
So it was a question of character.
Mm-hmm.
The people of La Plaine consider themselves to be of a high pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
It's an assumption. I like to use the word assumption, eh?
No, high pedigree. There's no assumption here. The records are clear, says it.
Okay, all right.
Pedigree. Yes. Let's go with the numbers now.
All right. Cassandra Williams, this election at Boutica. Persons went and voted at the Boutica Sewing Building, one polling station, A to Z. Cassandra received 91 votes in that polling station, and Jason Fountain of Todd received 3 votes, 1 rejected ballot. In the last election, in Boutica, Kent received 67, and this election we are seeing that Cassandra Williams receiving 91. So we saw the votes increased in this area, and Francisca Joseph of the United Workers' Party in the last election receiving Boutica in that polling station some 86 votes, rejected ballots 3.
Of course, the will of the people was quite clear and evident in that area for sure. Because the representative is supposed to be a reflection of the people in that particular constituency, and it was evident that Miss Williams was the better choice for the people in that particular constituency.
That's a clear message.
Yeah.
I mean, this cannot be debated. The people's voice is the voice of God, and as a result of that, there was no match.
Okay, and we can go to the area called Carib. The electors voted in the village council office of Carib, one polling station, A to Z. Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 56 votes, and Jason Fountain of Todd received 1 vote, 7 rejected ballots. And in the year 2019, we saw that Kent Edwards of the Dominican Labour Party received 49. So we can see that Dr. Cassandra Williams increased the votes. This one is beyond consistencies, almost twice the amount. And Francisca Joseph received some 53 votes in the last election, 2019. So in that polling station, we would have seen Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party in this election winning some 91 votes, or 56 votes, 56 votes to 1 vote to Jason Fountain.
Well, in 2019, she got 49 votes. And in this election, she got 56 votes, but it's still consistent.
Very
much.
There's not much shift.
Yeah. Now, in Casgary, the house of Dorian Pierre in Casgary, So again, that's one polling station, A to Z, and Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 61 votes, and Jason Fontaine 60. 2 rejected ballots. 6 rejected ballots. No, it's rejected ballots or 2, and Jason Fontaine received 6.
Yeah.
I hope I did not make that mistake. And Cassandra Williams received 61. The last election in the Casgary area, Kent Edwards of the Dominican Labour Party received 75, and Francisca Joseph received 39, as in the Casgary area.
Right. We can see again a level of consistency, 75 votes in the last election in 2019, and in this election, the doctor was able to get 61 votes. So again, there's a level of consistency. Labour votes are remaining consistent in that polling station.
Indeed. And taking into consideration the election was snap elections.
Yeah.
So people's mindset was already made up going into that election.
Yes.
Okay, in Delis, and in Delis, in the house of Everton and Joseph Delis, that too was one polling station, A to Z. Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 99 votes, and Jason Fontaine of Todd received 2. And in the last election, in that same area of Delis, we saw that Kent Edwards of the Dominican Labour Party received 113 votes, and Francisca Joseph of the United Workers Party received 67. Again, guys, we have been saying all night, consistency, consistency, consistency.
The Labour votes are still there, 113 in 2019, 99 in 2022.
Right. Now we are going now to Laron. In Laron, the House of Rose Coffee. In Laron, again, one polling station, A to Z. Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 33 votes in Laron, and Jason Fontaine of Todd, 0, did not receive a vote, sorry, and rejected ballots 4, spoiled ballots 0. In the last election, Kent Edwards of the Dominican Labour Party received 45 votes, and Francisca Joseph of the United Workers Party received 17. One polling station.
In 2019, Kent received 45 votes. This election, 2022, the doctor received 33 votes. We're still seeing the trend consistent.
Yes. All right. And we can now go to La Roche. In La Roche, we saw in this election Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party as Victoria and La Roche. In the house of Vonde Register in Victoria, again as one polling station, A to Z. Cassandra Williams, Dominican Labour Party, received 75. Jason Fontaine of Todd received 5. Rejected ballots 3. Spoiled ballots 0. The last election, we saw that in La Roche, Victoria La Roche, Kent Edwards received 49, and Francisca Joseph received 146.
Again, the figures don't lie. 49 in 2019, 65 in 2022. So we're seeing the trend remaining consistent in that polling station.
Indeed, people vote for who they feel is the best choice, and it is evident in that particular case, 94%, was it?
Yeah.
Felt that was the best choice.
That was the best
and
choice.
the numbers were evident in that.
Yeah. So what we are saying here, people are keeping their eyes focused on the electoral process. And this myth that if you're not organized and you keep beating the old dead horse all the time, after a while people get fed up with you.
So we go La Plaine in Jonesboro Primary School, surnames A to C. Cassandra Williams, the Dominican Labour Party, received 61, and Jason Fontaine of Todd received 8, and the rejected ballots 2. That's this election. Let's see what happened in the previous election. We saw that Kent Edwards received, for the Dominican Labour Party, received 96, and Francisca Joseph of the United Workers Party received 47, one rejected ballot.
Well, there was a slight shift in that. Kent did better than her in 2019. So there's a slight shift in that area where in 2022, The candidate is receiving 61 votes. So there was a slight shift in that particular polling station.
Of course.
In terms of numbers of persons who went to vote for the Labour.
And also too in La Plaine, Jones Bopier Primary School, surnames D to J, Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 93 votes, and Jason Fountain of Todd received 8. And the last election, Kent Edward received 98 votes, and Francisca Joseph received 115 at the Jones Bopier Primary School. For rejected ballots.
Well, there again, there's a high level of consistency. In the last election, Kent received 98 votes, and in this
92?
election,
98?
98.
Yeah.
And in this election, the candidate there, the doctor, received 92 votes. So there has remained consistent.
Indeed. Some may argue that it might have to do with the level of participation from those who felt that Ms. Williams might not have been the best choice, but it is evident that 94.65% of the persons who participated in that voting process felt that she was the best choice.
And then we can go again to La Plaine at the Jones Bopier Primary School, surname K to R. Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 73 votes, and Jason Fountain of Todd received 4 votes and 2 rejected ballots. And while Kent Edwards of the Dominican Labour Party last election received 92, and Francisca of the United Workers Party received 66 and 2 rejected ballots, and 3 spoiled at the last election.
Well, in 2019, the candidate there, Kent, received 92 votes, and the present candidate, the doctor, receiving 73. There's not much difference. It is for statistical reason, there's not a great shift.
Yeah, of course. I need to find a new word for consistency other than.
Yeah, well, let us say she has remained on course.
On course, all right. On course to the vision, of course, in what they choose to attain, which is a victory, and that can only be done with participation, communication, collaboration, consistency, discipline, and of course a set vision and energy. And if you choose to battle against someone who has that type of work ethic or that type of ambition to maintain or hold a stronghold in a particular area, you have to come twice as strong, twice as determined, twice as courageous, twice as ready for battle in order to become victorious. And of course have persons who may be a choice where the rest of the citizenry may feel that is a better choice. And I'm sounding like I may be heavy on independent candidates, but anyone who feels that they have a fighting chance, regardless of how big or how small, should come with a serious work ethic in order to make an impact.
Okay, so we're now into La Plaine again, S to Z, Cassandra, and again at the Jones Bopier Primary School, Cassandra Williams of the Dominican Labour Party received 48, and Jason Fountain of Todd received 2. And at the last election, we saw Kent Williams getting 58 votes and Francisca Joseph receiving 49 votes.
Consistent. Last election, 58 votes for Kent. This election for the doctor, 48. So the votes there in that polling station is consistent.
Might I suggest that we can just give a brief overview of the particulars, and then tomorrow have a more detailed analytics of it, as tonight persons are, I would say, getting a lot of messages here saying that they are deeply interested in knowing the 19 to 2 as to the amount and the percentages, not necessarily the nitty-gritties as to which particulars, A to Z, L to M, and how many. Though that is very important, but the basic overview is I feel, for the interest of time.
Okay, well, I want to agree because I was just about to ask you all if we could just do the summary of this year's election. And I'm sorry that we just have to do it very quickly. So the last election, we saw Granby constituency, Edward Regis of the Dominican Labour Party winning that constituency with 87.89 votes, percentage of the votes, getting 1,542, and Nip Paquette of the United Workers Party received some 211 votes, 12.11% of the votes. This election, we have seen that Vince Henderson of the Dominican Labour Party receiving 1,149 votes, which is 97.6% of the votes, and Lyndon Peters of Team Unity Dominica, third, receiving 17 votes. That is like 1.46% of the vote. And Henry Shillingford, our independent candidate, receiving 11 votes, 0.94% of the votes.
Well, very interesting. Since you want to go into the summary, in the last election, 2019, the candidate there, Ed Regis, receiving 1,042 votes in 2019, and Dr. Vince Henderson receiving 1,000, if I have it right, 1,730.
No, 1,000. Vince Henderson receiving 1,139.
1,139.
And we should make note that he won the by-elections.
Yeah, he won the by-election.
For 1,230 votes.
Right. So basically, his votes has remained consistent. Although Ed Regis is a son of Grand Bay, but Dr. Vince Henderson has been able to increase the numbers there to 1,139 votes, whereas Ed Regis had 1,042 votes in the 2019 election. So, in fact, the Labour Party in Grand Bay has increased the number of votes there.
No, well, in this election, we saw a decrease of 1,149. And Ed Regis will receive 1,532.
1,532. So yeah, there has been a decrease there. They had the numbers there.
South City Grand Bay, of course, has been a staple point for the Dominic Labour Party, and they have over the years demonstrated that and continue to demonstrate that they know what it means to be consistent with a vision and have a level of a vision for the constituency. So South City Grand Bay has maintained that Grand Bay stronghold. Not without any challenges, not without persons sharing different orientations, as you are aware of the political climate in Grand Bay right now. But the people themselves, in an overall view, tend to maintain their vision and tend to maintain what it is that they want for themselves.
Well, I must tell you, and Cecil, I must say that I believe in reward. Persons who have remained loyal over a period of time, and seeing that this year, the election cycle will be the last one for the Prime Minister, as is indicated, I think the time has come now when persons who have fought on the battlefield for you over these years, they must be rewarded. And I believe in the philosophy of Simon Bolivar, the liberator of Venezuela. When people have remained loyal to you over a period of time, you cannot just go out of politics without rewarding those people who have fought in the battlefield for you over a constant period of time. And now is the time that I believe their time has arrived, and they must be rewarded for being so loyal to the party over all those years.
Of course, and equally so, I believe we should remain, loyal to the Creator, who I call Yahweh the Messiah. And as long as, we have that strength and conviction in our spiritual independence, or that spiritual conviction with the Creator, and we make choices that we feel would not only benefit our person, but also benefit those to come afterwards, then definitely our rewards will be not only in the physical, but also in the spiritual, and allowing us to be holistically rewarded in abundance, because we know the Creator is one of abundance. And I'm sure that the people of Grand Bay themselves have a strong conviction and, their roots not only to the Creator, but also to their ancestors in Grand Bay themselves who know what it is to be liberated. So I just hope that their decisions that they make in the South City Grand Bay is one that maintains the orientation of liberation of mind and independence of mind. And if they feel that the decisions that they've made in that elections is one that reflects, that level of reward that they deserve, then by all means, the numbers don't lie.
And that's correct, We are going to go into the Soufriere constituency. We have known the Soufriere constituency, as many people would say, as almost, I shouldn't say almost, but it is a sure seat. When we were talking about constituencies that certain political parties would have won, we know when we speak of the Dominican Labour Party and we speak of Soufriere, it's always a must win. And we remember that Dennis ran the 2016 by-election, and the result of the 2016 by-election, when she ran for the very first time, she got 1,345 votes. And Higgs Adams of the United Workers' Party got 562. That's when she ran for the very first time for her by-election. Then in 2019, she ran again, and she got 1,352. And Samuel Christian received some 602 votes. So the by-elections, you would have seen that in the by-elections that she would have received 1,345, and in the elections of 1,352, an increase constant again. And this election, we would have seen that she received 1,236 votes. She got 94.1% of the votes. And Tahira Blanchard received 77 votes, independent candidates. So Tahira Blanchard received, an independent candidate received 77 votes, some 5.86% of the votes.
Very interesting.
That is Soufriere.
Very interesting. The first time that Dennis Charles ran, she got 1,345 votes. And that was in the by-election, as you indicated, Cecil. And when she ran in 2019, she got 1,352 votes. And this time she got 1,236 votes. So her votes has remained consistent in the Soufriere area. For the Labour Party has maintained its hold on power in the Soufriere area.
Even when Ian Blanchard ran in the Soufriere constituency, that too was also consistent. Ian received some 1,326 votes. So you can see that constituency has been consistent.
Right. And that is the important thing here, Mr. Robinson, is that in Soufriere, which was a traditional freedom seat,
Right.
and with the amalgamation of freedom and labor in one political entity, it shows that the Labour Party has been able to maintain its votes in that particular area. And you can see that there has not been a shift. One of the sexy girls, I'm sorry for that, well, she had a party and she ran as an independent candidate. So it tells us that the Labour Party has a foothold in Soufriere.
Okay, in the Roseau South constituency, we had Shakira Lockhart receiving 1,739 votes. 1,749 votes, some 81.34% of the votes. And we saw Wayne Noddy, independent candidate, receiving some 312 votes, which is 14.59% of the votes. And Davidson K. Julian received 87 votes, some 4.07% of the votes. So again, Shakira Lockhart received 1,749 votes. Wayne Noddy received 312, and Davidson Julian received, an independent candidate also received 87 votes.
Of course, and as you are aware, the snap election showed that, the independent candidates themselves, they brought a level of diplomacy or democracy to the election process, whereby Miss Lockhart, proved that she was battle tested to maintain her stronghold, as the data might show that Joshua Francis had 46.90 votes in the last elections, and she maintained a 53.10. And this election, she pretty much doubled her stronghold, having battled through the different challenges. Now she's at 81%, showing that there's an increase and there's a stronger level of confidence in the people within that area, but not without resistance or not without any fights or battles.
I must make a comment here,
Sure.
in that she got 2,194 votes in 2019, and now she got 1,739 votes. Wayne Noddy, the lawyer by profession, he didn't do badly, but at least he did not challenge as I was expecting. I mean, as an independent candidate. So she has been able to maintain the Labour Party votes in that particular area.
Of course.
And then we go to Roseau. Roseau Central. Melissa Popon-Skerrit, receiving this election 92% of the votes, getting 1,023 votes. As I said, these are preliminary results that we are giving. And Cashman Richards receiving 48 votes, 4.3% of the votes, an independent candidate. And Jason John Baptist, Team Unity Dominica, receiving 41 votes, 3.69% of the votes.
Yes, indeed. Of course, Miss Skerrit has definitely shown the new generation of politics within the Roseau area, in that she has brought a different level of politics to the game, a different view, a different approach. as well as Mr. Kashmir Richards. As indicated by the Prime Minister himself, he was rather impressed by the approach towards politics in this snap elections. And I hope that this type of mentality continues, whereby, we have different orientations as to the same goal. Whereas with proper communication, with shared vision and approach, we can form a level of collaboration if we all indeed want the same result for the constituency of Roseau, and not just Roseau but Dominica by large. And that's where I feel like just raising our level of political consciousness is important.
And it will be of great importance to note that the last election, when the very first time that she came into the race, she received 1,063 votes. Again, we're talking about the issues of consistency, and Glenn Roy Coffey of the United Workers' Party received some 870 votes.
But Cecil, I must tell you that the Prime Minister's wife, in fact, has maintained a high level of consistency in Roseau. And people pride themselves. Remember, this is the capital of the country.
Right.
And she's a woman. And persons are now saying, could she be, well, I don't know. But if she continues to maintain her hold on the capital, who knows what she may do in the future as a woman? Because we haven't had a woman as Prime Minister since the advent of Eugenia Charles. So men better be careful if she is that serious about continuing into the political life. I don't know. She may be a serious threat to the leadership in the future of the Labour Party.
Of course, as you know, wisdom is the voice of a woman, so pay attention. So if you are wise, you would, and I'm sure the Prime Minister is, he's paying attention to what she has to say.
I mean, seeing she's in the household of the Prime Minister, I'm sure that she's learning a few of that basic strategy, political strategy, which may enhance her in the future to become probably a leader in the future.
And we would have seen the election of 2014 in the Roseau Central area, where 991 votes was given to Joseph Zico Isaac of the United Workers' Party, then, and Alvin Bernard of the Dominican Labour Party receiving some 926 votes. And this time we have seen the steady increase of the voters in the Roseau Central constituency, that of Melissa Skerritt. So we have seen them move across the border of 1,000.
But you must pay attention to Roseau, because quite a number of young persons have migrated towards the Labour Party philosophy. These young people I see, especially in the Lago area, were the supporters of Norris Prevost and Joseph Isaac, and they have moved away, and they have now gravitated to the Prime Minister's wife.
Of course, yeah, because we are in a new political climate, not just in Dominica, but regionally and internationally. The younger generation, their eyes are opening up to the new approaches to politics. I'm standing for the independence, not by preference, but by the holistic view of what politics is. And the democracy that I've witnessed in these elections, I must say a kudos to the independent candidates, as well as the TUD candidates as well. But of course, without proper discipline, work ethic, and as you can see, Miss Melissa Skerritt has continued to increase her approach, innovate different ideas, and I hope that this collaborative effort between independent and present, because it's one government, allows the younger generation to see that there are different aspects of the same vision, which is a better Dominica.
Okay, we have seen Roseau Central now into Roseau North. The last election, let's go back to Roseau North. Last elections, 2019. We had Joseph Isaac in Roseau North getting 1,638 votes, which is 43.43% of the votes. And Danny Lugay of the United Workers' Party in that year received 2,144, which is 56.57% of the votes. And these elections, we would have seen that Miriam Blanchard, the victor, she got, of the Dominican Labour Party, she got some 1,476 votes. That is 87.7% of the votes. I will repeat the numbers of Miriam Blanchard. Miriam Blanchard, Dominican Labour Party, received 1,476 votes. Sherman H. Boston, independent candidate, received 115 votes, which is 6.83%, 6.83%, and Tyrone Fred Nicholas, independent candidate, received 92 votes, which is 5.47% of the votes. So Miriam Blanchard, the preliminary count has shown that she is the winner.
Hear me out here now.
Yeah.
I want to make a very significant point in terms of Roseau North, because Roseau North has been a garrisoning community for the United Workers' Party. And when we look at the trend of the independent candidates, especially in Salisbury and Marigot, the United Workers' Party votes migrated to those independent candidates. Surprisingly, it did not happen in Roseau North. And this is significant because Foncoley, which is a game changer in this election, did not vote. They did not go out to vote, causing that those independent candidates that ran, and apparently those in Tarish Street and Gota and Yampis, did not go out to vote. And as a result, Miriam Blanchard was able to win that seat. And I believe that it's going to be very difficult for the United Workers' Party in the next election cycle to get a hold on that seat, because whatever the Labour Party takes over, it's not easy to get it back. So Roseau North, after 4 election cycles, have actually gone back to the Labour Party. And this is historical.
Yeah.
It's very historical, because last time Miriam Blanchard ran for the Labour Party...
No, she didn't.
She didn't run that. Yeah, she was supposed to have run. And many persons felt that she should have in the last election. So it's very historical for Miriam Blanchard to have won Roseau North. And I myself would like to congratulate her on that spectacular victory in the Roseau North area.
And from what I have seen is that she has won every polling station to include NO6, which is the Foncoley area. And you made some very valid points to indicate, the demise of the United Workers' Party, especially not running these elections.
Right, and I thought that there's a guy, I will not call it a particular individual, you know him, you're a very good friend, especially in the Glasgow area. I thought that he would have influenced these independent the voters to go for that independent candidate on the other side, but apparently he got cold feet and he kept himself in check. So Cecil, that's a discussion me and you will have privately. That's not for the air.
Well, I can tell that individual I had conversation with him, and to tell him that you better stay away, because it was lamented by your organization, by your party, that you all should not partake.
So you must be you must be some of that blame. But that's a conversation we'll have privately.
Yeah, and just to put in my own orientation here, simple philosophy: the best way to fail is to not try. And at the same time too, one must also stand by one's principles or ethics. If they felt that the best decision for that particular constituency was not to participate, then it is evident in the numbers that the results that they have is based on their decision. The independent candidates themselves had a different orientation from the present United Workers' Party who felt that they would not participate for whatever reason or not. That is a deeper discussion. But it is clear that, as you clearly stated, consistency is important. The moment one slips, the other will capitalize on your mishaps. And in this game of politics, there's not much room for error. And levels of strategy, levels of preparation, levels of unison or unification is very important. And it is clear now that the people of Foncoley feel more unified with the present decision that they've made. And that in itself is one that history will only better describe than I could ever say.
Well, we are going to go to Maho constituency. In the Maho constituency, it's a very large constituency too, like that of Roseau South and Roseau North. I think Kasani Laville would have gotten, the highest number, the second largest number of voters. He received some 2,016 votes, which is 96.18% of the votes. And Dunstan Peters, independent candidate, received 80%, which is 3.82% of the votes. And Reverend Blackmore, the last election, received some 2,191 votes, and Felix Thomas received 1,865. So Blackmore received some 54.02% of the votes, and Felix Thomas received 45.98% of the votes. And it's a clear indication that, again, as we spoke earlier on, of the constant
consistency,
or the consistency of the Dominican Labour Party supporters get into the polls, and you can sense from what we have seen in the past election cycle that the Dominican Labour Party supporters have always found themselves going out there to vote, even when in worse circumstances they go out there to vote and to make sure that they give support to their candidate and to their party and also to their leader.
Well, I think that Kasani Laville was a very good choice, and he's maintained the votes, 2,016 votes to Raymond Blackmore, 2,191 in 2019. And so he, as a candidate, is a very charismatic individual, and he has maintained the Labour Party votes in that constituency.
Of course. The Maho constituency is one that is very interesting. And just the whole approach to the political election cycle moving up to snap elections, it was a clear energy around that area where Mr. Peters himself, in his declaration, stated that it's not a competition, but rather, a collaboration. And you get that sense that there is going to be a stronger collaboration between those who place themselves up for, representation versus those who are already there, and changing the word from versus to togetherness. So I hope that the people of Maho can see the overall benefit of having two different perspectives of the same vision.
And what is important to note, Dutu, is that you can sense that from the Honorable Prime Minister that he's changing the narrative, and changing the landscape of politics in Dominica. We have seen historically, this is the very first time that we have seen so many young people involved in politics. The Prime Minister has been able to identify not only intelligent people, but he has been able to identify people with large capacity that would be able to help in propelling Dominica's face for the future. And so that has to be complemented. I think it is one thing that when he leaves in the next 2.5 years is that he has seen the Labour Party coming in with 10 seats, now been able to get up to 19. And I don't think in the history of Dominica's elections since after independence that we have witnessed any one party getting 19 seats. We have seen the Freedom Party receiving 17 and two independents coming on board with them, giving them 19, but as a party on a whole to receive 19.
But I think that one cannot falter my good friend, Ms. Blackmore. Within his tenure in the Maho constituency, he has done a lot of major projects, projects that have transformed Maho community. And one can see, I don't want to list them here, and so Mr. Kasani Laville, the standard there has been very high.
Of course.
Raymond Blackmore has raised the bar. One may argue about his approach to people. Some people say he's not warm. But basically, in terms of his performance and in terms of infrastructural development in the Maho, Massa, Kinful, Warner, Campbell community, he has done a tremendous job. A tremendous job. And I need to commend him on that. And Kasani will have to maintain it and excel above that. Because it's one thing for one to raise the bar, and you have to maintain consistency. So Maho, if Mr. Kasani can maintain that, they're in for a very good time in the Maho constituency.
Oh, for sure.
And not only that, Kasani is a very exciting individual. Kasani has great capacity. Kasani is one who's very intelligent. He looks like one who is almost like a golden boy, and with a great plan ahead. And so Kasani coming into the realm of business now as a young man, I can tell you that's also a lot of promise, not only for the Dominican Labour Party, but for Dominica. Now, let's go preliminary results for St. Joseph. We had Darren Lloyd of the Dominican Labour Party receiving 1,014 votes, received some 90.13% of the votes, and Tiani Bihanzin receiving 28 votes as an independent candidate, 28 votes, and Ferdinand Jermaine, an independent candidate, receiving 33 votes. All right, so that is what it is like in St. Joseph constituency.
Well, I would like to take St. Joseph constituency with all that hoopla of the great Tihani Behansen. One would have expected that the son of Rosie Douglas in that area would have created at least a stir, but he did not even have a ripple. Even the other independent candidate, Mr. Germain, was able to poll more votes than him. And I realized that all that hoopla that this gentleman was making, and I need to call his name, Irving John Vanderman Pascal, who gave us the impression that he was going to contest the election as an independent candidate. He's a very intelligent individual because he realized that his money would have gone into the treasury because the other two independent candidates who ran, the money is now sitting in the cold room in the treasury. So Irving Pascal, this big hoopla you had about being the new man for the St. Joseph constituency, I know now that you got such a weeping. Tiani, behave yourself in St. Joseph. Behave yourself, my brother. And Dr. Pascal, St. Joseph taught you all a good lesson. You all will stop thinking that you all can go to St. Joseph and play manage. Well, that's my own interpretation. And who vex?
Yes.
I would have seen in the last election that the Dominican Labour Party with Addis King received some 1,324 votes, with the United Workers' Party receiving 877 votes. Addis King receiving some 60.15% of the votes, and Monel Williams of the UWP receiving 877 votes.
Yeah, in relation to some of the comments, my fellow guest here, fellow Dominic King, is it okay if I call her Dominic King?
Yeah, of course.
Fellow Dominic King here, some of his statements I would say is subject to his personal opinion and perception on the whole scenario. And looking at things as is, and looking at the situation, the numbers, the statistics, and as is, it would appear that a lot of the consistency that we've been mentioning so far tonight plays out within the numbers. However, my whole orientation tonight is to raise the level of political consciousness within our country, to understand that the approach towards a victory or battle, the battle is won without even a blow being struck. It is the approach towards the battle, the preparation towards the battle that is very important. And if there was a different level of approach or preparation, I would say, towards the snap elections, then we'll find a different result. I cannot speak to some of the comments that you've made. That's your personal orientation.
Well, let me tell you that.
Knowing Mr. Sorry for cutting you, but knowing Mr. Behansen, I've known him personally, and his orientation in terms of law stands from the Creator, in that there's a level of justice that comes from a higher moral ethics of approaching law, approaching justice. So he's, whatever reasons for entering into the political realm as an independent candidate, as I would think that the other political candidates are to ensure that persons can see and perceive that there is a level of political democracy that still exists. But in order for one to participate, one has to actually participate. And looking at things clearly as a neutral stance, as what we are supposed to be doing here, you would understand that consistency wins the race. However, participation is very important as well.
Well, I support.
So let's go now to Salisbury. Linsha Frank, she received 443 votes for the Dominican Labour Party, 42.87% of the votes, and Gemma Paul, independent candidate, 617 votes.
Yeah, this one is very interesting in that like I stated a number of times tonight here, the best way to ensure that you fail is to not try. And in the case of the Salisbury constituency, it shows that the 57.13% is a reflection of the new level of political consciousness and awareness that is awakening within the younger generation, within the region, within the international scheme of things. It shows that the people themselves have a different understanding of politics, in that they don't necessarily need to support a particular party as long as they support each other. However, there is a strong support for Miss Lyncia Frank, which in that particular constituency is one that proves that the Dominica Labour Party is a strong force to reckon with, even in areas whereby you would think it would be a blowout for anyone that is, opposing. So definitely, that shows the level of political change, or the catalyst of political change that we are in right now. And hopefully it is one that shows more collaboration rather than a me versus you, but rather two different mindsets can attain the one vision, which is a better Dominica.
Okay, so let's go to the Salibia constituency. Cozier P. Frederick got 1,003 votes, 71.8% of the vote, and Muter J. Laville Matthew received some 394 votes, 28.2% of the votes. And so the incumbent, Cozier Frederick, was the winner, or is the winner. Yes?
Yeah.
Well, yes, the Kalinigo people have remained true and faithful to the Labour Party over a period of time. Since the Labour Party took over that seat, they've remained true to Labour. And as the Prime Minister said, these are special people for him, and he is doing everything in his power to improve their social and economic development. And as a result of that, they trust his leadership, and by extension, the candidate who he has given them.
Okay, so we go to the Marigot constituency. Gregory Rivera of the Dominica Labour Party received some 329 votes, which is 39.83% of the votes, and Anthony S. Charles, independent candidate, received 491 votes, which is 59.44% of the votes, and Carlos Charles, Team Unity Dominica Todd, received six votes, which is 0.73% of the votes.
Very interesting in terms of the candidate that won in Marigot represents a political party.
Independent, actually.
Oh, is it independent? But I thought, okay, independent candidate. And so it has remained true to its own independent thinking, and as a result, that did not surprise me at all. It going to the independent candidate.
Right, so now we can go to Portsmouth, the final of the 15. We had Fenella Winham of the Dominica Labour Party receiving 916 votes, which is 87.93% of the votes, and Margaret Vidal receiving 114 votes, which is 11.07% of the votes cast.
Well, the Labour Party has always maintained its hold on Portsmouth, and it's no surprise to me that they have maintained their loyalty to the Labour Party.
So yes, so Magdalene Vidal, independent candidate. Magdalene Heather Vidal, most persons know as Heather Vidal, received 114 votes. We had Coliho, Roland Roye as the winner. Roosevelt Skerritt, Dominica Labour Party, duly elected, and also in Paybush, duly elected Lakea Joseph of the Dominica Labour Party, and Colio Darren Pina, the Dominica Labour Party, duly elected, and Dr. Irvin McIntyre, Dominica Labour Party, duly elected. So we have, there are 19 seats for the Dominica Labour Party, and we should have Wesley. Let's go across to Wesley. Fidel Grant of the Dominica Labour Party received 717 votes, which is 70.9% of the votes received, and Clinton Roll received 293 votes, 29.01% of the votes.
Well,
Yeah.
gentlemen, I must tell you that a very interesting discussion tonight in terms of the political cycle. And what we can see, I mean, we have come to the end. Have we?
But we have not said Petit Savan. Petit Savan also is duly elected.
Right.
Julian Defoe of the Dominican Labour Party.
Right.
So,
So-
six
so-
seats were uncontested, and 15 seats were contested. Out of that 15
Right.
seats, the Dominican Labour Party received 13, and already there were 6 seats duly elected, and so 6 and 13 is 19,
yes.
and 2 seats for the independent candidates.
Well, we have come to the end of the political cycle for 2022, and it's very interesting that we can make some comments now on the discussion, I would call it, that the Prime Minister had at the State House in terms of his vision for Dominica, as he indicated that with his new team, he's looking for every person to be on board. He doesn't want for parliamentarians, when they're elected, to come to work late, to attend functions late, not to pay attention to the plight of the people. Because everything that happens in the country, everybody say is scared. Scared. If the rain falls, it's scared. If thunder rolls, it's scared. If the river comes down, it's scared. And so he's saying that he wants everybody. Once you're elected on that team, you have to be dynamic. You come to serve. And he has done a transition over a period of time where he has brought in new candidates in every election cycle after 2019. 2019, he began the process and he continued in this cycle. So what he was doing there is what is called succession planning, planning for the future, because he doesn't want to continue after a certain period of time, and he's indicated that quite clearly. So he's preparing the young generation or the new politicians for the mantle of continuing after him, because the political cycle has to continue. And so he's preparing people for that. And now there's some major projects, Cecil, that's going to be on the road, and one of them is
you know guys, that I have a person of the National Council here, File Lander. It's important that I get from him his views as a young person, seeing the number of young persons that the Honorable Prime Minister has taken on board into his government, I must say, because there are now 19 of them and who are duly elected. And so I want to find out from him, File, what do you make of those young candidates?
Honestly, Mr. Joseph, it just means that the future of Dominican politics is very bright. And we can see that we're seeing a lot of young individuals coming from various lengths and breadths of the island. We're seeing Lakia Joseph up in Pebush, who I know personally. We're seeing Darren Lloyd as well, who both of which are relatively young, both of which under the age of 30, and they are starting their political careers younger than the current Prime Minister did himself at the age of 32, way back then. So we're seeing that there is a significant impact in the lives of young people.
No, he became Prime Minister at the age of 31.
31, yes,
right.
you're correct.
And,
he would have started,
but he would have started at the age of 27.
27. But it just goes to show, Mr. Joseph, and to the other panelists, that young people have a place and have a voice at the highest of levels, and it should serve as a charge to them, rather, to now be the voice of the youth where it matters. And we can only hope that as young people, that with the incoming senators, there's some more room for more young people to come on board, so that the youthfulness can be felt in Parliament, especially coming off the heels of, say, the National Youth Parliament, just coming from March this year, of which Lakia Joseph was a representative in the House of Assembly. So we're seeing a lot of young people getting the opportunities to show their worth and show their capabilities and possibilities within the House of Parliament, which is impressive.
Well,
but before you go, Cecil, that I don't want to lose that point, because if you're talking about the inclusion of young people into the political cycle of the country, then one has to look at opposition forces. When one looks at the United Workers' Party, and we have to take a look at that, in that they have not been able to bring in many young persons. When you look at the average age of the political party, you'll realize that the average age of the party is about in the 50s.
No, maybe even 65.
Right. Well, I don't want to extend it to that, but I would like to just be moderate in terms of saying it's in the 50s. And one has to understand that you cannot continue a political party if you cannot get the young people involved in your political process. You would have to bring in young persons because they are the future of the party. When you hear the Prime Minister is transiting the party at the age of 53 or thereabout, and you have a leader who is coming into the party as the leader of the opposition, and he is almost already at the 50s. I'm saying that.
No, he's in the early 60s. That's what you're saying.
Well, I'm even being moderate, and I'm saying that even there in the opposition that is going to be there now, he's not going to be the leader of the opposition. No, he's going to be the leader of a political party. But in the discourse in Parliament, which is what you have to look forward to getting into, he will not be there. It will be either the lady in Salisbury or the gentleman in Marigot. So already within the political process, the leadership of the United Workers' Party is not in Parliament. So you find that a new political entity may emerge with the independent candidates that are there in the party. That is now going to form part of the opposition. Who they'll bring in, I don't know. But it would be, if for instance, the political organization that they maybe represent, we don't know. I'm just saying that, would probably want to have a trade-off and bring in some of the old guard into the opposition. I don't think they'll be helping their cause because the old guard themselves will be already men of age. So if they are hoping to create a new political perspective in the discourse, in the way forward, they would have to begin to bring in young persons within the political sphere to change the direction and preparing. That should be the strategy. What do we do? If Mr. Skerritt has been the obstacle in our way because of his leadership style, they would now have to prepare themselves now for the future. So that when Mr. Skerritt comes, they are fully organized in terms of being able to challenge the transitional leader.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to take the last point from Fael, and a closing remark from Hassan, and a closing remark from you, and then we're going to continue our conversation on Sunday.
That's right.
Yes, Fael.
But Mr. Joseph just shows that it's a point of succession planning for the incumbent. We're seeing that a lot of plans for, he's talking about the fact that he's on his way out in the next 2.5 years. He's including a lot of young blood into the party. So it's a way of in management planning that what we would call succession planning, so as to ensure that there's no break in that continuity of what is being done, the work that is being done. And he even made mention to it this evening with the 15-year plan, which I think a lot of us would be interested in seeing it coming to making it to pen and paper. But I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate all the winning candidates as well, both on the Dominica Labour Party side as well as the independent candidates. And of course, just want to encourage Dominicans, it is now time for us to work together, for us to seek to get to that point of reset and get to that point of working towards the upliftment and the development of our country for better. Thank you.
Yes, let me hear Hassan.
Yeah, in accordance to what Mr. Lando just stated, it is important to get the voice of the young people, but it's also important to speak the language of the young people as well. And the communication aspect of any relationship, be it business, intimate, political, is having your communication skills well understood, clear and precise. And the language in which the Labour Party is speaking and their approach to communicating with the younger generation is one that is becoming manifest now, as the political landscape of not just Dominica but regionally, internationally is also changing. And I'm not one who is deep into politics per se, but I'm more one who is an advocate for consciousness and spirituality. Consciousness means just becoming aware to be aware is you have to be aware of the political landscape. Get to know your constitution. Get to know where you stand. Get to know the impacts that you can make, the things that you can and cannot do. It is those that could act but chose not to act, those who could speak but chose not to speak, those who hear but pretend to not listen, that creates a different reality from what it is that they want. Whereas if you want to speak to the younger people, you have to speak their language. If you want to see a change, you have to be that change. If you want to see people political awareness elevate, you have to elevate your own political awareness as well. And this is what I'm here for, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here for, is to let people know that you have to have an open-mindedness to life in itself. And politics is one aspect of life, but the vision and you have for yourself have to be aligned with other persons who share that similar vision. And the independent candidates, the Dominica Labour Party, as well as the opposition themselves, could learn a lot from these snap elections, and hopefully I see a more unified Dominica moving forward, especially one that is more aware as to what it is that we need to do to move forward.
Okay,
well,
Hartley?
Yeah, well, politics for me over the years, and I'm 70 now, is a science. It's called political science, and it's called strategy. As an administrator myself, you have to plan. In the absence of a plan, you fail. You must always prepare. It's like having a carnival band. When your band is finished, let's say in Trinidad or Dominica, you plan for the next one. You do not wait for people to be ready. You must always be in a state of readiness. Because within the British Constitution and within our own Constitution, a Prime Minister has the mandate or the power to call an election at any time. And so as soon as the political cycle and one election is over, like now the election is over for 2022, immediate plans must be put in place for the next one. You must not say it will be called in 5 years. You don't know. So whatever strategies that you're putting in place, you must begin now. You must not spend your time looking for or witch hunting. The main issue in any political democracy in a small island state is bread and butter issues. People want to know where they're going to get the next salary.
Well, we will continue that discussion on Sunday.
You just started me on a roll, but I'll wait until Sunday.
Thanks again, guys, and let's continue doing what you have to do. And just want to inform the world that Dominica's election is ended, and the Dominica Labour Party has won 19 seats, and there are 2 independent candidates. So again, let's have a good evening wherever you are at this time. From me to the listeners out there, I'm saying bye-bye.
So I had a hunch he was lying. That was kind of the first crack in the mystery.
Ben believes Timothy Mayer probably lied out of fear. He had committed a capital crime, and the discovery of the Clotilda could still get him into trouble. But much like